Thank you, Coralie, for that very nice introduction. And it's a pleasure to speak here this afternoon. As Coralie said, I was very happy to do it. And that's very much due to the fantastic work that she does with Chronic Pain Australia and her commitment to you all in this room. So I'm always happy to be partner with Coralie in what she's doing. And she may have said that I did it very readily. I may have said it readily, but after I did, I was having some second thoughts. I thought, I'm very happy talking about spinal neurons and pregabalin and treating pain. I've never talked about values. Coralie said, I'd like you to talk about values, some of the things that you cover in your program. I thought, oh no, this is why, I'm a doctor. We don't talk about those sort of things. I'm much more comfortable talking about pharmacology. But it was actually a very good experience for me. It's the first time I've done a talk like this to actually think through some of these things. A number of years ago, myself and a couple of others, a couple of colleagues that I've worked with for many years, started writing a book. And you'd think, well, why write another book? There's plenty of pain books out there. But part of the reason that we did that was that we wanted to bring a slightly different flavour to some of the things that are out there. And so some of the things that we looked at in that book were things such as courage and gratitude and hope, which are some of the things I'll talk about this afternoon. So I have thought about it, but it's one thing to think about it and even write about it and actually get up and speak about it, particularly to a group of people who I know are living out that experience. And I'm very sensitive to the fact that you are living the experience of all of those things. And so in one way, I want to be careful about what I say because I can say it from here, but I know that you're living out. But I think what we've heard from Mary Lynn is a fantastic... I mean, she could have given my talk. She is a perfect example of somebody who is living out all of those things. Gratitude, courage, hope, and we heard it all today in the words that she said. So thank you, Mary Lynn. And in some ways, I'm going to cover some of the same things, but maybe in a slightly different way to the way that Mary Lynn has done it. So, as Coralie said, the theme is very much let's talk about values. And what I particularly want to look at is around about hope. And as we know, and as you all know who are in this room, there is a huge impact of pain. There are physical changes as the pain itself. There are physical limitations. It impacts on sleep. There are side effects of medications. That leads on to psychological effects, depression, anger. Mary Lynn again mentioned fear. People feel helpless often, that they can do nothing to help their pain. That also feeds through to social impacts. There's the impacts on friendships, family, work colleagues, loss of relationships. And what sometimes gets missed, and again, some of the things that we thought about it, is the even deeper impact. Once you lose those relationships with colleagues, family, friends, that has a huge, deeper impact, which I'm sure many in this room have felt themselves, of those deeper things. Losing your sense of identity. Who am I? I've lost my job. I can't go back to work. I've lost those relationships with my friends, my family, which again detracts, makes you question, who am I? What is my role? What can I do? And even a sense of loss of meaning. Again, where do I go? What do I do? I've been an active, productive, as we've heard from Mary Lynn, somebody who was an incredible contributor in what she did. How can I contribute when these things are holding me back and preventing me from doing what I want to do? And all of those really spiral in sometimes to lose that hope. And again, another word that Mary Lynn used to say that there's that loss of hope because of loss of all of those sort of things. So how do we give hope? We go and see somebody like this. And just seeing George Clooney might be enough to give you some hope. And of course, what does George say? I will take away your pain. And that would be wonderful. I mean, in a sense, that's what we would like. And as a doctor, that's what I would love to be able to do, sitting in my office, is to I don't want to look. I know I'll never look like George, but to at least be able to say those words. And as we know, the reality is not there. We just can't do it. And this is from a questionnaire that we used when I was at North Shore a number of years ago. And that was part of the questionnaire. And at the bottom, you can see how much would your pain have to be reduced And on average, people say around about 50%, which you think is reasonable. People asking 50% relief is not outrageous. And if you look at recent data, and we're now starting to get data that's coming in from around the state from different pain clinics, and this is our average data for New South Wales, which has been compiled by EPOC through work that's been done with New South Wales ACI, and this has been set up in the last couple of years. So we're now starting to see data about, well, how well are we doing in clinics in New South Wales? And I'll say at the beginning, this is early data. This is not, as you can see, the numbers are not big. This is still less than 50. So we're just starting to collect this data, but it does give an indication. And if you look at the change in pain, it goes from 5.9 on average out of 10. After treatment, it drops by just a bit over 1. Or if you put it in percentage, the average reduction in pain is 19%. So people are coming in saying, I'll be happy if you can reduce my pain by a half. On an average, so far, we're doing less than 20%. And looking at it a slightly different way, those who had 50% relief or greater were 22%. So that's what people are looking at, and only just over 20% of people we can actually deliver what they're looking for. So you may think, well, maybe people in New South Wales and people coming to see us have unrealistic expectations. An international study, what do people want? 50.91%. We're exactly in line with what other people are looking for internationally. And maybe we're just very bad at treating pain in New South Wales. Maybe we need to get our act together. But again, from this international study, the reduction in pain was even less, was just over 10%. So it's not that people here have expectations that are unrealistic or different from anybody else, or not that we're particularly bad at treating pain, but there is this huge gap between what people are hoping for and what we can actually deliver. So that may sound like a pretty bad way to start a talk in terms of giving hope. You're all probably feeling more depressed than when you walked in the door. But I'll start to head towards some of the things that we can do. And I guess the question is then, well, what can we do? If we can help people get 50% relief for about 22%, particularly for that other 78% of people who are getting less than 50% of relief, what can we do? And if you look at the impact of pain, we know that it affects these other things. The depression, anger, fear. And looking at the same data, we can get changes. So we can reduce the interference of somebody's pain in their life by around about 22%. There's a change in depression. We can reduce that by over 25%. We can reduce anxiety. We can reduce that sense of helplessness. So even though we may not be able to take away the pain, we can certainly do some things around people's the way that they feel. Again, of course, we'd like those changes to be greater, but it's saying that there are other things that we can do, not just focused on the pain itself, but around the impact of pain in terms of the way that people feel. And we can also improve the way that people have their confidence, their control. I think, again, what Mary-Lynn is talking about, a sense that you can get some control back over your pain, which can increase as well. So I think we often focus on these negative things. We focus on depression, anger, hopelessness, fear. And I think what we're moving towards more now is a model that's focused more on resilience. And what are those qualities that we see in people who enable them to keep on moving forward, even though they're facing these issues? And we know that things such as self-efficacy, acceptance are important, but also looking at these other things such as courage, purpose, and gratitude, which we can see in people who have this quality of resilience. And focusing firstly on courage, and of course, courage is not the absence of fear. This is a quote from our book. And of course, the natural response to pain is to withdraw. But courage is not the absence of fear. And for people with pain, we can start to dismantle fear by showing that pain is not necessarily a sign that damage is getting worse. And just by education, that can be part of that process. But at the end of the day, that pain is still there. and there is still a possibility that something may happen. And so there is still a necessity for courage to be able to continue to do things. And I'm sure there are many people in this room for whom it took a lot of courage just to be sitting in the seat where you are this morning, because of what pain does to you, the way that you feel, and to get past that. So courage is an incredibly important part of moving forward with pain. In our book, we also talk about gratitude. And this is always a difficult one. And some people have picked up our book and they've seen gratitude. What on earth are you saying? Are you telling me that I've got to be thankful for the pain? And of course, we're not saying that. But again, as we've heard from Mary Lynn, it's finding things in our life. Some people call it counting the blessings. Whatever way you look at it, it's being able to see past the pain and find things that do provide things that can help you to have that sense of thankfulness, gratefulness in the things that are there. And part of the reason that I became interested in that, I read a book by, I don't know if anybody has heard the story of Sam Bailey, who's a quadriplegic in northwest New South Wales. An amazing story. Some people may have actually heard him speak, but he talks in that book about gratitude, and that's when I first started to think about, well, this seems to be an important part of people being able to move on and to deal with something in a way that lives life well in the face of a spinal cord injury or in pain, and really started to make me think maybe this is an important thing that we need to talk about as being able to move forward. And again, I know it's a very sensitive, and I find it very difficult to talk about, because I don't want to suggest that we're saying, well, you just got to be thankful and get on. But there seems to be, as we've even heard this morning, there seems to be something about people who have that sense that gives them that strength and that resilience to be able to move forward. So we've talked about values in those who have pain, but I think the other important thing as we're talking about is also social, is the impact on social and values in others. And compassion, I know it's in the sign right in front, compassion is a huge part of particularly others around us, the people, the circle, and I think that's what, again, Mary Lynn is talking about in those people that she's found, is a sense of compassion in the people who have pain, the people that have been involved as health professionals. That's what people are looking for. And it's empathy, it's not sympathy. It's not saying, oh, you poor thing, we need to do something about you, but it's sharing that journey, being part of it, being present, being able to do what you can, recognising your limitations, but preparing to move forward and move through with the pain in that. And as I said, being partly a pain neuroscientist, I can't get through a talk without throwing at least one science brain imaging thing. And this is a study that was done looking at people who have physical pain and people looking at other people having pain and looking at empathy. And that's the sort of scan that you see with somebody who has physical pain. There are different areas of the brain that light up. Part of that area of the brain is telling you where the pain is coming from, and part of it is just the suffering. So the top part, if this will work, this top part is telling where the pain is coming from, and that is sort of more the suffering component, just saying this is a bad experience. If you get people to watch other people in pain and then scan their brains to see what happens, that's what you see. Of course, you don't have that part of the brain switched on which is telling you where the pain is coming from, because there are no messages coming from your knee or the shoulder. But those suffering components are still there. So I think this is really important. It's talking about empathy, but I think it's something that we really haven't looked at in terms of people who are living with people with pain or working with people with pain, that they are suffering. And what we call compassion fatigue is actually that ongoing experience of pain that maybe we don't deal with ourselves in terms of dealing well out and moving forward and running out of steam ourselves to support people in the way that we should. So, lastly, existential. And existential can sound a bit airy-fairy and unrelated to real pain. But if we're thinking about issues of identity, meaning and purpose, they're hugely important in terms of people living with pain. And there have been some studies done, and we've done some ourselves, where you can measure these issues of meaning and purpose and how they're affected in somebody's life. And there are a number of studies using the same questionnaire, looking at groups of people with cancer, HIV, AIDS, and showing how strong their sense of well-being, existential well-being, their sense of hope, meaning and purpose. And I don't have controls there, but they are all significantly reduced compared with controls. And if you look at chronic pain, it's even worse. So people with chronic pain have lost their sense of meaning, purpose, hope to a greater degree than people who have advanced cancer, HIV/AIDS. So it just shows the impact that I don't think we've really recognised of how important these issues are for people living with chronic pain. And it's something that I feel that we need to address. And one of the people who's done this, I don't know, maybe people here are familiar with the work of Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who was imprisoned during the Second World War, was in a concentration camp, and wrote of his experiences at the end of the war. And he talks about the enormous capacity of people to get through that experience, but the differences between different people. Some people went under, some people just seem to emerge sometimes even stronger than they're experienced. And for him, one of the big issues was that somehow those who could find some sort of purpose, some sort of meaning in what they were going through, and were enabled to continue to be able to come out of that incredibly horrendous sort of experience. So he's certainly not saying that pain is not an issue. He's certainly not saying that we should avoid suffering, but what he's saying is that meaning and purpose are incredibly important in terms of being able to live with that sort of experience. So I said we're going to talk about hope. There is some good news. So what I'd like to just finish off with saying, well, there is hope for the future. And I think we're not ignoring, I want to make that absolutely clear, that we're not ignoring the experience of pain. And again, I think sometimes there's a danger in saying these things, is we're just saying, well, look, forget about pain, just move forward, be courageous, those sort of things. Certainly not. That the pain is incredibly important to deal with. And there are some very exciting new things that are on the horizon in terms of treating pain, in terms of medications. There are new drugs coming out, procedures. We have new cognitive approaches. Neuroplasticity approaches are also fascinating. I don't know if anybody went to hear Norman Doidge when he was in Sydney. Fantastic talk, and raises huge possibilities in terms of retraining, rewiring our brain in terms of helping pain, not just to help us cope, but actually to change the experience itself. So there are some promising things that are ahead in terms of reducing pain that I think give us real hope that we're going to be able to do something for pain. But also we can achieve these improvements in physical function, mood, thoughts, and there are things that we're doing already and things that are coming again just around the corner that will be able to make more of a difference. In terms of stigma and again compassion, I think we talk, and I know Coralie is very strong about this in terms of trying to reduce the stigma, and the work that she is doing, Chronic Pain Australia, in terms of education. Sessions like this is part of what is important in terms of better recognition and getting compassion out there in the community. The work that New South Wales ACI is doing in terms of getting out information and informing people so they have a better understanding about what pain is all about, I think is an incredibly important part of getting compassion in the community and in the people that we work with. And I'm not sure what it looks like, but I think we're also on the threshold of trying to look at these deeper issues as well. And there are people who are doing that. I know Patria in her workshops is looking at these sort of issues. And people like Chris Hayes and the work that he's been doing at John Hunter. So we are looking at it, but I think we're still trying to grapple with what does that really look like in terms of helping and assisting people with pain. But I think, again, as I said, it's an incredibly important part of being able to do that. So thank you very much, and I'll finish off there.
Thank you.